Welcome, everyone. This is Dan with the Spiritual Underground Podcast, coming to you from my little wood shop in my backyard, which I transform into a podcast studio every week or so to carry this 12-step message. If you are new to the podcast, the Spiritual Underground Podcast, this is primarily a 12-step recovery-based podcast, although I do explore other avenues of recovery where people, the definition I use is to reclaim that which was lost or stolen. And people use a lot of practices and a lot of, primarily, in my opinion, spiritual practices. And by spiritual, I mean the spirit that resides inside of you. However you see that, I'm okay with it. But my spirit was definitely sickened at one point in my life, and it needed to be healed. And this recovery podcast or recovery program, 12 steps delivered to me, healed that. And among other things that I've walked into, yoga and mankind and some other things that allowed me to grow and continue to heal and get to be the guy that the universe is wanting me to be. So that's what we're about here today. DTMWW.net, DTM Woodwork and Handyman. I got a little business here in the Louisville metropolitan area. Need any business, any work like that done, please feel free to check that website. You can find my phone number on there. Also a Facebook page that supports this podcast, Spiritual Underground Podcast. 12-Step Spiritual Recovery is a book by James Christopher Cone. It is available on Amazon. Once again, 12-Step Spiritual Recovery, James Christopher Cone. It is the 12 steps for everyone. It's a deeper dive. It's a lot of tribal knowledge from the past 80 plus years of practicing this stuff that Christopher has put together from a number of teachers that he had the privilege of working with. And a lot of that stuff wasn't getting caught anywhere in writing, and Christopher put it down on paper. And we're having meetings around it, and we invite people who don't fit the traditional 12-step fellowships to join us in those meetings. And I watch these 12-step tools work for those folks too. So it's not just limited to people who have an addiction or alcoholism or any of the other 100 or so isms that the 12 steps are working for today. You can have, we'll just say this, you can have absolutely nothing wrong with you, just wanting a little bit, something better in your life. And these tools will help you get that. Darren Frank's music's wrapped around this podcast, as always. Thank you, Darren. And we will get on to the topic at hand today. Greg's my guest today, our guest, let's say. And, a lot of times I have like a specific meeting point where I remember somebody and why. I'll be completely honest, and I do remember meeting you, but there was no, I had a couple times when people like came in with a slap in the head kind of almost thing, sure. And you kind of came into my life more quietly. Yeah. I just started seeing you in meetings. Yep, that's true. It came together slowly. I think one of the first times when I really got to know you, though, was at one of the retreats. It was. That'll probably come up along through here. What's your sobriety date?
It's 8/6/17, 2017.
Yeah, so this will make three
coming on 3 years. Yeah, this summer. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah. And you were you come through Christopher's group, right?
I didn't. I stayed in the Brook. I was kind of a long-term patient. I think I stayed in there like 21 days. Your buddy Chase, I was in there with him.
Okay, yeah.
So I didn't know Christopher until I actually came into Spiritual Underground, and it's the first time I've ever got to.
Okay, I was mistaken there. I was thinking that you had come through his part of that. And that same thing, if I remember right, Chase they wanted him to stay longer, and they actually traded out what would have been his outpatient stuff for him to stay inpatient longer.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened to me. Yeah.
So he missed out on an opportunity to be in Christopher's outpatient group, but he needed that extra long stay in there. I still remember him calling me one day when that was happening, and he said, "Man, they want me to stay for so many days," and da-da-da. Yeah. And it wasn't really mopey, but he was he definitely wasn't up for that idea.
Sure, well, neither was I. Yeah. But you know what? I had been through that before, and I'd stay 5 days detox, and I'd get out. Maybe they'd stretch it to 7, they'd stretch it to 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8. 8 I knew I couldn't bullshit around this time. I had to stay in there, and I did not want to stay 3 weeks in that little area because it is like a prison, bud. I'm telling you, they lock the doors, and it's crazy. You're in a little bitty wing, and I had no choice. I mean, if I was going to bullshit, I wasn't going to bullshit myself no more.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yep. Well, that's my default answer in a lot of these things comes down to, one of the things is my way never worked. So
It never works.
If you're wanting, let's try it somebody else's way this
Absolutely.
time around. And I don't know if they're right or not,
Right.
that you need to be there that long, but let's just assume that's our power working there, and that they know better than us.
Yeah.
And do what they say to do
Oh,
this
yeah.
time around.
We had there was a feisty older woman in Brooke when I was there, and she looked at me and said, "I've seen you before." And this was like probably the 4th day of detox, and she says, "What are you going to do different?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I'm probably going to leave in a couple of days. I'm going to detox. I'm good. Everything's good." And she looked at me and said, "You're so full of shit." Said, "Are you willing to do it this time?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And well, you're going to stay here. You're going to stay here for 3 or 4 weeks. And I had to think about that one hard, but I let God kind of guide me on that one. But that lady really, she just called me out. She's seen me before.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There definitely is that drying out period thing, and it is a different, can be a different duration for many of us, they can't, and I don't really know why, because, all in all, that's really still a really short amount of time, you blink your eyes now and 3 weeks go by, right? And
for sure.
So, but inside a place like that, it feels like a
lifetime.
time.
Yeah.
Even just a week feels pretty damn long. I can't, I never ever stayed sober out of a visit. Now, I never stayed a long term. I was in those 5-6 days just to detox and come out, and I would stay sober, for a while.
Yeah.
Like 90 days, things like that, and my current sobriety date is not off of one of those visits to a rehab joint. But I definitely know that was a Kickstarter for a lot of people need that, and I'm not saying I didn't need it. I probably needed it too. I just didn't end up. That's the way it went.
Right.
But to be able to, because it's just so hard to get a few days sober.
It is.
If you're not in some safe and protected kind of environment like that, there's just no way most of the time. I mean, I was to some extent struck sober to some extent. I just didn't drink again one day. I actually had to back up and kind of recalculate my sobriety date after a few days, realizing I haven't drank or used in a few days.
Wow.
I have a new sobriety date.
Yeah.
And I was lying on my last one the whole
Sure.
time anyway, because I was telling them, I was in trouble. I was pretending to be sober for quite some time. Mm-hmm. I'm sure a lot of people knew that I wasn't, but
well, you and I got a
was
similar
pretending.
story because we're not only alcoholics, we were also addicted to pain pills.
Yeah.
And you can't go to detox for 4, 5, 6, 7 days off of pain pills and say I'm cured. It don't work.
Yeah.
And so that 21 days was important to get off the damn pain pills. I was like, I'm ready to get off drinking, but the opiates were a different animal.
Yeah, they are
different animal.
Completely different animal.
So I think anybody that's going in for any kind of opiate addiction, whether it's heroin, you can't just detox 5, 6, 7, 8 days. You can't do it.
Yeah.
Don't work.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys know that right now.
Did you grow up around here?
I did. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and I tell you what, if I'm gonna just kind of give you the beginnings of my story, because most of us have a beginning. Mine goes all the way back, just like Genesis, just like the 3 words in Genesis, in the beginning. Mine started with birth. I came out messed up in this life. I came out. If anybody knows anything about breech birth, it's when your ass backwards. I came out ass backwards.
Did ya?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Dad said that the doctor said that when I was coming out, he's like, "Oh my God, this kid's got a big, wide, beautiful smile." He said, "No, it's his ass crack."
Yeah.
So I'm an original OC guy. I'm an original cracker. So I came out a mess from birth. And what it was is, flash forward to about 1968, which is probably in the 4th grade, I'm already in a child psychologist's office. You know what I'm saying? I'm already seeing a child psychologist because back in those days, they didn't know what ADHD was. They didn't have a word for it. But I was born ADHD, and I was born with a brain that just could not grasp all this extra energy that my brain was trying to give me. I didn't know what to do with it. So I was in constant trouble. I was in constant trouble from the get-go. I mean, by the 6th grade, this is, they don't do this to kids now, but by the 6th grade, they already had me on Ativan. You know what Ativan is? It's the cousin of Valium and Xanax. Yeah. And so in the 6th grade, by that time, I already got it because I couldn't in class. Teachers didn't want to have anything to do with me because I couldn't sit still. So I came out like that, and you mix that from birth, your brain chemistry like that from birth, and then you mix the fact that my sister had died right before I was born, right? So my mother was so fearful of something being wrong with, she had spinal bifida, so fearful wrong that when I was born, I was spoiled, right? So I was able to manipulate. You take that brain chemistry that I had, and all of a sudden I learned how to manipulate.
Yeah.
You put those two together at a youthful age, that's going to do some damage. So I came out swinging when it comes to an alcoholic's brain. It was foundation. Yeah. I had nowhere to go but down. Yeah. Took a long time, but that's the beginnings of me. And between those two different dichotomies like that, everything came from that. All my alcohol and all my drug addictions, all my way I looked at life, it all came from that dichotomy. Because I had great parents. I can't blame them on my parents.
Yeah.
Yep,
me too. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I can't leave that at their feet. It's interesting too. I've heard somebody else talk about this, but I'm sure that you knew that or at least the adults around you were telling you had a problem. Mm-hmm. And you got taught pretty early on that if you have a problem, take a pill.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I absolutely did, man.
I don't think those lessons stick.
Yeah, no, they don't. No.
You will, and I remember doing the same thing, except for not necessarily that way. Mine was mostly accident-prone kind of things. I got hurt a lot when I was a kid, and would get pain medication prescriptions, but had no idea back then. And I look back and think about how that might have started planting those seeds.
Well, sure.
Of that extra special liking of.
Yeah.
And this is not to throw my mom under the bus at all, because I know that this isn't a blame thing. She also suffered from the same, or maybe she had the same appetite for pain medications as I did. And I can remember being small and getting these pain medications and not really knowing what I'm getting. My mom would be with me, and she would be pretty adamant that I would get prescribed those things. And I would get one or two at home, but the rest of them, well, they disappeared.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I didn't care what happened.
Right.
It wasn't a big deal to me. And it took that peeling of the onion before I could actually remember those events, and going back and looking at that, and again, it's not a blame thing, but I do see and recognize that was something that was happening from early on. I was taking them, and then also to some extent I was being used in order to get to so that she could get some.
Wow. Yeah, isn't that crazy how just some of those early plants, those seeds, when it comes to certain addictions, especially pain pills, which, it's crazy because I remember in the 8th grade, I had broken my collarbone playing football, and we went to the hospital, and I was about ready to pass out. I was in so much pain. It came through the skin. It was a compound fracture.
Wow.
And my mom was like, you got to do something. So they come out and they gave me Demerol. And I still remember it to this day. Oh, my God, I fell in love with it in the 8th grade.
Yep.
So it's fun. It's crazy how we were set up like this, and that's why. And not only was that set up, but by the time I was in the 8th grade, also my sister had killed herself.
Wow, so 2 siblings you lost by
this
time.
My parents lost 2 siblings, and my
sister.
The
younger daughter, the other one was born with
spinal bifida. This one didn't make it. But when I was 14, my older sister, teenage sister, killed herself.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, I had this set up of this dichotomy that I'm gonna with my brain, but then all of a sudden tragedy hits.
Right.
And
As I said, we're born with this, or when you hear it a lot, we're born with this little tweak in our
for sure,
chemistry or whatever it is in our being, whatever, and then you throw trauma essentially
yes.
on top of it, which is that's like that are traumatic.
They are
period.
traumatic. It's that.
And
It's
you throw
just,
those two things, man, and you almost don't have you really don't have a chance.
No, you don't. No, you don't. It's crazy. It's like, okay, what's the three storms make the perfect storm, right? So it comes in threes, and that trauma was that third thing on top of me by the time I was 14.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to make excuses, but in a lot of ways I didn't have a chance.
Yeah, I get it. People say we made some choice, but I don't think that we made a choice to go down that pipe.
No, I definitely did.
Things that happened, and that was really the only, to some extent, it was the only escape route I could find in order to cope.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to handle it. Back in those days with all, when my sister killed herself, my parents didn't look for counseling or therapy back in those days. No, you just sucked it up, man. You're a good old Irish Catholic. You suck it up and you go about your day. And so we didn't deal with it, and my family fell apart. Mom and Dad fell apart. And it's just like I say, they were good people. It's just some unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah, that's tough stuff for anybody to deal with. I mean, it don't make any difference what. And that whole deal with parents losing their children is.
Yeah, it is.
There's that. Maybe there isn't anything more traumatic than that.
I don't think there. You got kids. I got kids. There's not. Can there be?
Yeah, right.
No, I don't think.
I can't imagine either. I don't. I don't know, so I don't want to put myself to say.
No, right. Don't want to know.
But we had a really good friend. Lost his son the other day. And adult son.
Barry,
and you just go, golly, man, I just can't even begin to imagine.
I know. I felt for Barry. That's
to this disease. He decided, played with it just a little too long, one too many.
Yeah. But it took me. What's really sad about all this, by the time I was 14, it was determined what my life was going to be like, and I made it from 14 to now. Of course, the last 3 years have been the best 3 years of my life. How I made it through all this stretch. It's that's a miracle in itself, right? It's like, because it took me till I was 56, really. I'm 59 now. It took me till I was 56 to stop. And I always ask myself, this question, Greg, why did it take you? Why now? Because you've stopped before. 20, my story.
Yeah.
I can't answer that. That's why I sometimes say, it was not my decision. It was a higher power's decision. I was finally ready.
Yep. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and I try to give other people some grace when they're not able to get it, air quotes, get it, and for whatever reason that journey I'm of the belief it just is what it is, right? That and it may not happen for this person,
right?
We were talking about this the other day about the whole shame thing about screwing up again, and that's almost as deadly as the using.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I mean,
I'm attached to shame. Yeah, absolutely.
When you've screwed it up once again, another relapse, and especially if you had any kind of if people around you knew you had some sobriety for a little bit or whatever, and then now I've slipped up again.
Yeah.
And then so like the first time you go, okay, I remember my first relapse. I was actually after coming to recovery, there's many times before of trying on my own kind of thing, and that's funny how I don't register that as a relapse. But the first time I actually walked in a meeting and because I'd seen other people get new white chips. And I screwed up, and actually what I did was, because that's what was always getting me. I didn't have any problem. I'll be honest, I didn't have a lot of problems stopping drinking. I had a lot of problems trying not to take more pills.
Gotcha.
Me too. And I'd taken some pills, and there was two things in that. One of them was that I hadn't relapsed on alcohol, and I was going to AA, and I had heard enough that was, not what we talked about. It's got a lot better even over the last 9 years of me being around, but that was 9 years ago. So coming in and saying I'd relapse, coming into a meeting of AA and saying I'd relapsed on pills, Didn't make sense.
No.
But I went in anyway, and I got, and I don't even remember now, but got that first white chip, and it wasn't any big deal. But some people like shamed me, you know, and so a few months down the road, I got some more, you know, I'm sober for a little while longer, and I relapse again. I use again, and this time around, I'm like, I'm not so quick to walk back into those rooms and tell people this time.
It's natural.
And you know, and then what would happen is that the guilt would be on me, and I would just stop going to the meetings.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then you'd ramp up, and then that cycle of things, you know. So that guilt and shame, and I understand, you know, I understand the disappointment behind a relapse and being, and you know, because I'm hurt every time I see somebody go back out that I know and I love, and it hurts me. There's some pain involved there. But man, I try really hard not to shame them anymore, you know, because I know that never worked for me.
You can't. No,
the whole nicotine quitting world was all about beating you up when you caved. And it never set well with me. Was that, you know, when you screw, because that's exactly like, we punish you for exhibiting the symptoms of the very disease you have.
Right. Anybody, look, our code is supposed to be love and tolerance.
Yeah.
That's the code. That's where we all get to.
So back to these teenage years, and you're growing up. I don't want to keep on sidetrack too hard sometimes.
Yeah, back to my teenage years. So I didn't know how to deal with myself, and so the first thing that a guy about, I think I was in the 8th grade, asked me to come over one night, and he brought out a joint, right? And so I smoked weed for the first time, and I was like, whoa, man! All of a sudden, I just, you know, it just found my answer, man. It calmed me down, really. It took that energy and that I never knew how to handle from that ADHD, because I wasn't, you know, I got off them damn Ativan. I was walking around like a zombie, and my mom said, no, we're not going to take those. So I had no idea what to do with that energy, and pot worked right off the bat.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, man, I found something. So then I started drinking with the marijuana, and that escalated. It just escalated. And what happened with me is I ended up getting, and once I got to high school, you know, I got in trouble. I went to a Catholic school and immediately got in trouble in the Catholic school. And by my second year in the Catholic school, I was asked not to come back. You know, and so I went into a public school for the last 2 years, and the public school's a little different than those Catholic schools. I'm gonna let y'all know that now. They are in Louisville anyway, but I could get away with a little more, and just and then all of a sudden I had no repercussions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's as dangerous. That's dangerous too. You know, very dangerous. And that's when it started. Mine started escalating once I went over to Iroquois. Started hanging around the guys that started thinking like me. You know. And
interesting how we gravitate like that.
Yeah,
think about how that also plays out some weird way, you know. And then not to say they don't do that stuff in Catholic schools, because the Catholic school here in Southern Indiana, the most prominent one, some of the wildest dudes I ever met in my life went to that school.
Well, sure, they no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying that.
But it's funny how you I don't really know what to wrap around that, but it's interesting, because that's another, I call them bell ringers in here, and when that's what you hit, a bell ringer of how the universe placed you somehow or another with these people that were like you, that were doing the things you wanted to do. You know, but I know it wasn't like a grand plan. I'm going to leave Catholic school and go over here with these guys.
No, it wasn't.
But we gravitate. There's a magnetic magnetism to bringing these forces together.
I did it in the Catholic school. I also gravitated to the guys who were smoking weed too, you know. And the difference between those Catholic school and public school back in those days was structure. You know, they forced structure on you in Catholic schools, where in the public schools they didn't.
Yeah.
So a person like myself, and you know, but at this point, my mom and dad had backed off of me. You know, they knew that, you know, I had an issue with the ADHD. They knew that I was in some weird way. I wouldn't say handicapped, but I had some flawed way. So they just backed off. Said, you know, Greg, you can do, you know, you do whatever you want to do. You know, I had no repercussions from my mother, father, school system. I mean, I could literally do whatever I wanted to do, and so that was just a path, an early path in teenage years. It was just set up for destruction. You know, how I made it, like I said earlier in the podcast, how I made it, it has to be a God. It has to be a God thing. It has to be a higher power thing. Because I should have died. And we hear this in AA meetings all the time. Because I'm definitely not an individual here. And there's a reason. There's a reason why you're sober and you're sitting over behind that mic, and I'm sitting behind this mic, and there's guys in these meetings who have gone through just hell, and they are alive. There is a reason, a bigger reason. It's your job to find it.
Yeah.
God's giving you a chance. It's your job to find it, and I think that's where I'm at on this path. Which, like you said earlier, about one of the most probably beautiful thing about AA is being able to learn to just absolutely be yourself.
Yep.
Have no inhibitions. Just be who you were meant to be, because God only knows how many different masks we all put on.
Yep.
It's from protection, embarrassment. It's all these different masks and layers, and that's what I'm seeing. And that took me. Okay, I'll be 3 years in summer. That's taken me just in the last 3 or 4 months. It took well over almost 2.5 year mark before I start really being able to grasp things. Because good Lord, when you've been screwed up for from 14 to 56, it's a lot of years, man, that you're not seeing reality the right way.
Yep, and hadn't unwind all of that. And,
yeah.
Would that also coincide with this new sponsor, this new teacher you got?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. There's no question about it, because the thing that I see, and this is with myself, but I also see it in AA, and I also see it in people who come in, in their first 90 days. We talk about our will, right? Our will, and I equate it to. I guarantee when my mom and dad tried to potty train me, I said, "Screw you, mom and dad. I'm gonna shit any way I want to." And I see that attitude. That attitude is prevalent amongst us.
Yep.
So I think that's why I kept relapsing, because of that attitude. And I finally met some guys like Chris and Darren, and then another, and my original sponsor. But these guys, they brought it out to me because it was. For one, they were good teachers, right?
Yeah.
But I was also, the old saying, if the student's ready, the teacher appears.
Right.
So I think the student was finally ready.
Yeah,
and then
in my case too.
Yeah, and usually if the student's ready, a good teacher's going to appear. That's the beautiful part about this. And I got a beautiful teacher with Chris, and I got a beautiful teacher with Darren. To me, it's like, I got the best of both worlds, because this is what I needed. I got the spiritual concept from Darren, just that beautiful, deep energy spiritual, and I got all that wisdom and knowledge from Chris.
Right.
So your sponsors are very important. To me, the three things that if I have to look at people in AA meetings, and I either got to have somebody I like listening to somebody that's really spiritual. I like listening to somebody that's got a lot of knowledge or wisdom, or that third one, which is just as important, is I like to listen to somebody I know who's doing service. They are talking. They're not just talking talk. They are walking the walk, and that's what I see in you, Dan. That is one of our gifts from you to our spiritual underground. You walk the walk, brother. We've grown because of you. There's no ifs and buts about it. One of them, and so I look for those three things in people. Every once in a while, you'll see all three things in one person.
Yeah.
And that's when you see that light on their eyes and that shine, So, it's a sponsor is so important. But you got, like I say, the students got to be ready for the teacher to appear.
Yeah, and it's that more and more I see these things on this, that magnetism we was talking that put us into the people who want to continue, who want to use and how that, and it's more and more of this like guiding your own destiny to some extent, even though I'm not. I'm more like on that ant on a log going down the big river thinking I'm steering the log.
Yeah, right.
But if when I set my energies towards certain things that things work out that way. So, when I wanted to use, I found myself around a lot of people who wanted to, when I was wanting to drink and drug real good and hard, I found myself in that position.
Yeah.
When I wanted to not anymore, in walked in people who were willing to help me do that,
Absolutely.
And,
student is ready, yeah.
Yeah, and, I think some of that power of positive thinking kind of thing. And even though that other thing wasn't necessarily, positive at some level, but we all another common thing you hear around here is that for a long time, I don't know that I'd lived through those years if I didn't have that medicine to take, the dope and the booze.
Yeah,
because that's when people check out early, and I look back at my high school days and things like that, and I didn't realize that these guys committing suicide back then were essentially suffering from alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing of coming to this down here later on, and all of a sudden I was like, damn, John and Glenn and them guys that killed themselves when we were in high school. That's what that was.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. Yeah, I had two good friends do it when I was young.
I had no idea what it was then.
No, did not. No,
and both of those were, one of them was catching a lot of heat from his family system on stopping, and so I think to some extent he stopped his medicine but didn't get any new treatment. What that does to us, that dry drunk thing. If I'm not treating myself, if I'm not doing this mind, body, spirit deal, and the 12 steps helps me with, then just being sober is not going to work for me.
No, it won't. No, and that's one of the hardest things to learn, really, as a strong-willed person.
Yeah.
Right. But it's true. It's very true. Because I had two good friends. They were my party buddies, and both shot themselves when I was a kid. And
that's the way both my friends did too.
Yes.
Or these two I'm thinking of. There's actually was a few. And then not to mention the vehicle deaths that were drinking related.
Right.
Multiples of those, whether it be on a motorcycle or cars, and I have another half dozen friends that died back then from vehicle crashes and drinking and driving.
Yeah.
And if I put it all together and look back there at it, man, there's a pile of people that were victims of this, and I had no idea.
Right.
I have had a really good friend die drinking and driving, and it didn't even faze my drinking and driving. I drank and drove like a hobby.
Right. No, I agree, and it goes back to what we talked about earlier about if you are getting sober and you're trying to get sober, you have a gift from God because so many people didn't make it. Yep. There's a reason. There is a reason for you still be kicking here, guys, and
that knocking. Yeah. Greg's trying to make a point somebody, and he's got a thing where he knocks on the table, and I don't want to drive you guys completely crazy, so I keep on kind of hushing him on it a little bit, although I know it's just passion. It's passion, but it's also adult ADD. I don't take any more. I don't take medicine, so I'm a kind of energetic guy, man, and that's part of. I was thinking if I put some kind of cushion over it, you could knock on it, wouldn't be quite so. Wouldn't go up into the microphone. No, I've learned. You hit this. And it goes, not only does the noise come up, the actual vibration goes right through the table and out the arm. Oh, okay. No big deal. Right. People just deal with it. It's me learning how to deal with my energy. It's one of the. No problem, man. But no, man, it's. I have one guy in here, and he had his water bottle, and he's ringing it, ringing that water bottle right here by the microphone. Oh. I was like, hey, come on, man. I gave him a crystal to hold on to, and once he got the crystal in his hand, he chilled out a bunch. Gotcha. Crystals are. I'm learning to believe in those. I didn't believe crystals. Good Lord, crystals were just rocks. Come on, man. And that's another gift right there. And I'll tell you something about the higher power. And people talk about crystals, for example, but mostly I'm talking about higher power. When I came in, right, I was raised Irish Catholic, and I checked out by the fourth grade, because in the Bible it says man is created in God's image. So I'm looking at the sky and say, I know damn well there's no guy up there. You know what I mean? So I checked out because of the way they were trying to teach us the Bible literally. But so I didn't really believe in God. I kind of just put it on the back burner. But in Spiritual Underground, right, I started running into guys. I'll tell you one example is Shane, for example. I knew I could look in his eyes, and I knew he was convinced that this God and the Spirit was there. So I had to see it in others before I ever could grasp it myself. Right. And that's the key with guys who are skeptical, is look
look in other people's eyes and just know they're convinced. They know they are in touch with their higher power, and that guy right there probably boosted me when it comes more to God than anybody. You know, so you can't you got to be open minded, man.
Yep.
You have to be.
Yep. Yeah. And the opposite of that is in a bunch of places in that blue book, it says, in various ways, it says, what I think I know for certain ain't true. What means I have to let go of my old stuff.
Yeah.
Because I can't be open to new stuff. As long as I'm hanging on, my old stuff will block me from being open to the new stuff.
Is there really an absolute truth anyway?
Right.
Is there?
Yeah.
I don't think so. You know, it's just particles of truth out there, guys. That's the thing you gotta accept.
Yeah.
We can hang on to black and white, and it's just not like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we get this, it's interesting to, like, how that corresponds to what we're dealing with in the world right now, This whole thing of what we thought the world was.
Yeah.
In a moment.
Yeah, we did.
It took a shift, right?
Yes, it did.
And things are a lot different today than they were however many weeks ago.
Yeah,
I
a month
really
ago.
know.
Yeah.
But you think one thing is the way it is,
No.
and the universe can turn on a dime on you.
Absolutely.
Somebody sent me an email the other day, yesterday, I guess, on if we think we had it tough, and it had a whole bunch of stuff and pictures and stuff from the Depression era, and about that shift in what happened to this country during the Great Depression, and that was 11 years, essentially.
Yeah, it was.
And here people are have their lifestyles changed in the first couple of weeks, and they're already
Sure.
people are
No,
already
I agree.
protesting, and and so, like, could you imagine? I know maybe they did, but could you imagine somebody maybe protesting in the Depression?
No, I don't. No, I couldn't. No, for sure. No, that's a good point. No.
But folks are, there's a lot of, and everybody's dealing with this in their own way, and I don't want to. It frankly has not. It has not done much to me personally.
No, I've been very lucky and blessed too by this, because I've actually grown through this.
I kind of like it.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
some level. I don't like it that people are dying, and I don't like that, but it did hit me and slow my pace a little bit, and I think it certainly gets you really quickly. It put me in a spot, some gratitude for what I do have in my life.
That's right.
And some things,
That's
some
right.
teaching, some stuff that, because at some level I feel like the last 5 years I've been just practicing for days like these.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. I like the way that's a great
It's
idea.
set me up, because I have friends that are sitting in apartment buildings, bored out of their gourd.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I
don't have that problem, man. I got a place out in the country to go. I got this awesome wood shop. I got, boredom is not my problem today. I've got things to do, and things that actually fulfill me too, So, and a lot of that came as a result of recovery. Is that I had some of that stuff to begin with, but I didn't enjoy it.
Right. So how healthy is the self? I mean, that's what it boils down to. And I told myself, I'm going to grow during this time. I'm lucky and blessed that I was getting paid during this time. Right. But I'll be damned if I'm just going to just whine or be depressed because I can't be around nobody. I'm going to grow. I'm going to grow a foundation, a spiritual foundation during this time. And it's actually, these last 4 weeks have been probably one of the largest growth in self-reflection, because it's not rumination. Rumination is a bad thing, guys. Rumination is when you're caught in yourself, and it's not good. Self-reflection in the right way is serious growth, and so I've learned the difference between that, because I used to, you hear people and they, we're addicted to thinking. I am, but ruminate. I got rid of that rumination, and it's so important to get rid of that. Know the difference between self-reflection and rumination. But I feel it perfect ease.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
The flip side, that's another word out of that book. It says something about we made a rough going of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I can put that on myself now, if I would choose to. I could make this a real pain in the ass.
Yes.
All I have to do is think it is.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
and it'll be that way. I have to constantly, remind myself, and it's not hard anymore. It's not like it's not work for me to say, Because I really do think, well, I think everything's going to be okay. I really do. I think everything's going to turn out just to be fine.
Right, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to lose some people. We lose a lot of people anyway. Do you know? There's a lot of people that die every day on a regular day.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to lighten this particular thing at any level. But I can't get myself hung up in that, right? We did a third step decision that said, hey, I ain't in management anymore. It's not my job to run. I have to be okay with however it goes. And then the flip side of that is, I don't know what definition of everything's going to be okay is. Maybe I end up catching it and dying. And maybe I, to some extent, am not okay in the same word most people think is okay. I'm okay with that too.
Wow.
Why fight this? Why continue to swim upstream all the time?
Gotcha. Yeah, I like the way you're thinking. What I do is I don't try to fear it. I respect it. I do what I'm supposed to do. I stay we try to social distance. I do that. But I don't fear it. Yeah. I respect it is what I've learned how to do. But I'm definitely
in people's homes all week long working.
Yeah, I got you. But I'm not going to worry about it.
And I just don't worry about it. And we practice safe stuff while I'm in there, and we have some sense about us. And I'm just not going to. I'm not in a position to quarantine.
I agree, but the big blessing about this is we had enough time to really develop our spiritual foundation, our healthy way we look at our healthy ego. We've learned how to learn how to handle that and look at it like that. And there's guys who's been, I'm telling you, man, that whole first year of my sobriety was a freaking roller coaster mess. You think I got it 6 months? No way in hell, man. I didn't get it in a year. Matter of fact, it's 2 years. It's the last several months that things have just like, wow, this is incredible.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
Somebody else read something the other day that from somebody in recovery said, like it or not, this is the moment you've been preparing for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
And it also made the point that if you're in early recovery, which it would really suck to be in early recovery right now, and I say that, that's a judgment. I don't know. I think it would be difficult to be in early recovery right now. I would think it would be. But if you stay sober out of this, you got a pretty bulletproof recovery going on, right?
Amen, brother.
You say, hey, I made it through that.
Yeah, you got a hell of a story.
When did you get, I got sober and, whenever, well, I got sober during the pandemic.
Yeah, it's right. You can always come to that, which, come on, guys, you can do it. We know you can do it.
Validity to that,
Yeah, for sure.
Tend to have some trials when we're in early recovery times, and sometimes those forge a stronger being in recovery because of surviving the tough spots, right?
Yeah.
I know I had, I can say that for myself over some of the hardest things that I've gone through since I've been sober are some of the things that have strengthened it.
Yes.
It's the same way you're talking about this particular crisis we're in here in the world today. I look at it like you said, it's a time where I get to actually a time for growth, not a time to slip backwards or even stand still.
Right. No, and you've been through some tough times, man. I've seen your dark times, and it's amazing because you have come through with strength, which is cool. And one thing I've also learned, probably in the last several months, is I'll sometimes will slip back. Just that funk will come a little bit. Maybe through disappointment or frustration or something. And I'll slip back. And I know now, though. I know that. I sit in it. I don't worry about it because I think one of the things that alcoholics and addicts do if they're not healthy is that emotion that hits them is the most important damn emotion that's going on in the world, and is it going to end?
Yep.
I sit in it. I know it's going to end, and I also know it's going to end quickly because I'm aware. But not just that awareness. I also know that whenever I have maybe a couple of days of a backslide, just a little bit, that third day I'm coming out strong. That growth is. Wham! I'm already growing again. So those little days like that, bud, you guys got to reach out, but they're short term.
Yep, and the another thing is that in the past we would reach for something to make that go away quickly.
Yes.
Right? I need to do something about it quickly. So today I can just kind of feel that for a little bit and just be with that.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. For a little while. and know that it will pass in
Yeah.
time, and know that
Yeah.
at the same time have the awareness that, I also need to take some actions by, do me well to reach out to somebody.
Yes.
Maybe
Absolutely.
maybe step up some exercise, go for,
Yeah.
and take some action
Yes.
along beside that. But I don't have to. I don't have to play whack-a-mole with my emotions anymore.
Right.
I'm allowed to feel my emotions and sit in that for a little bit, and just say, hey, I'm not ready to change it at the moment.
Yeah. It's okay, man.
I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
sad right now.
Yeah, I'm sad.
So
but
what?
So what? So what? Yeah.
I won't be sad. So I've heard Russell Brand talk about these emotions that come upon us, to look at them as visitors. They're not here to stay.
No, they're not.
They just come visit once in a while, and that goes for happiness too. You can't stay on that
No.
on that emotion 24/7 either.
I agree.
We have a range of emotions
Yes,
to
we
feel.
do.
And honestly, you really ought to be feeling a little of all of them. There ought to
Yeah.
be some of that elusive word balance in that department
Yeah.
in one's life also. Because if you're too damn happy all the time, you watch people that suffer a lot because they'll have some tragedy happen in their life and it doesn't seem to affect them. And it's like, man, you probably might need to like grieve that.
Yeah, right.
And get that emotion out of there, because otherwise I think you're stuffing it.
Yeah. No, it's honestly, you come to realize when you start getting healthier that, emotions are a gift. They are. All of them.
Yep. Or else you just stand around
Yeah.
looking like you're inanimate all the
or you're
time.
not going to grow. Yeah. And there's no growth. So, it's kind of cool when you start realizing all that. And I know there's a lot of guys in it that have been lots longer sober than me that have realized that way long ago. And there's people out there in the first year that can't understand that. But it's just part of that growth and part of that gift that we do start receiving when we stay in tune with AA. And, the number one thing for me, I can always say about AA that I know that's important for me was I was kind of a little bit of a lone wolf all my life, and connection. I knew I wanted it, but I didn't know how to achieve it, So I think Spiritual Underground, the blessing that I got from Spiritual Underground was the connection that I was finally able to open up and have a true, deep human connection. Because I'm gonna be very honest with, and I know some people are probably listening to this podcast probably will definitely not agree with me, and I'm okay with that. But meeting makers make it. Well, that's not true for me, because I have been going to meetings. My first meeting was 26 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I'd be the first one out. Last one in, first one out. I didn't want to reach out. No connection. I was married, raising kids. That was important. Connecting with other alcoholics, true connection, friends. And it wasn't important, It's 3/4 of that battle is that true connection with other alcoholics.
I agree.
And that's what I had to learn. That the Spiritual Underground thing you have at the cabin up there, the retreats you have, man. That first one, I was probably 3 months sober on your first one, right? And I went up there. I don't know how many guys we had in that circle up there, but that was my first spiritual awakening. It really was. And because I went up there and I cried because of that V word, the vulnerability. I thought, what? I'm never going to be able to connect unless I show my true sadness, my true loneliness, my true vulnerabilities. And I did to you guys up there. And that reception was incredible. It wasn't like what I thought it would be. It was true connection. And when that retreat ended, and I was, like I say, I was probably 3 months sober. First time I couldn't even feel my body, man. It was the strangest feeling. I was floating. And so I know where my first spiritual awakening came from. It came from that actual retreat that day, because that is connection. It's human connection. I mean, human connection causes oxytocin, right? Yep. Causes some other neurotransmitters releases, and that was the most important thing for me to learn from AA. It wasn't the meetings itself. I go when I have to go, but it was guys jumping in and getting friends and getting really connected.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's somehow or another, it goes in that, again, I'll refer to that book. It said towards the end of it, it says, he will help you create the fellowship you crave.
Yeah.
And somehow or another, it guided me to building this thing around me.
Yeah.
of these people who I actually can do that with, you know.
Yeah.
And people came and wanted to come play. You know, I've said this too in here that, you know, at some base level, I'm really just a 12-year-old kid on the playground wanting not to be picked last on the kickball team.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to be picked first either.
Right.
Don't leave me over here last.
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
And so today I get to play on the kickball team, and people will come play with me. We do this recovery thing together, and we're able to be vulnerable with one another. And then, you know, even more importantly, like you said, meeting makers do. You know, I understand where that comes from. That has to get, because otherwise, if I don't come to meetings, I don't start getting to know these people who I end up getting to do this other thing with, right?
Exactly.
But for me, it's more on that. You know, today I like this thing that we do out. You know, and even especially more so now that we're not meeting face to face, is that it's important for me, like, to have this FaceTime with you today.
Gotcha. Yes. Yes.
You know, and the other people that come in the podcast, and I look at that too as like this miracle, similar to the way I have this wood shop and this hobby to do, and this thing out here that whenever need a place to lose myself, higher power also has given me this vehicle where I don't lose my complete face-to-face connection with guys.
Yeah.
And I do still bounce into people. And Dawn came down with me to the cabin and cut firewood a couple of weeks ago. We spent the night down there. So I'm maintaining, even though we're not in groups as large as we were. And I'm still going to have my retreat next month.
Are you really?
May 15th, 16th, and 17th. And those who feel like coming can come. And those who aren't comfortable with it, that's cool too.
Oh, wow. I know it's so important, though.
I just don't want to skip it completely. And I recognize that it'll be smaller than it was. Frankly, last year with 32 dudes down there was almost to the edge of like where that's probably growing to the edge of what's reasonable for my facility.
Gotcha.
Is getting up into that kind of number. So backing it back down again like this, because 10 guys right now are saying they'll be there.
Gotcha. I understand that. It's weird. It's like because I know how important that retreat is. That retreat saved me. It's what finally said, you know what? I can do this. I think I got true friends I could do this with. You know, that retreat did that. So I know the importance of that retreat. It's a weird time, you know. It's like I got mixed emotions. I mean, part of me is like, yeah, I'm going. Hell yeah. Yeah, it's just it's a real weird time, you know. So I hopefully I have the
and I totally, you know, probably all in all, especially if the weather's nice, you know, from what I understand, like being outside, that virus doesn't really survive hardly at all under sunshine. If it's on surfaces and stuff.
It's outside.
UV is one of the things. Well, the retreat.
I got you.
So the UV and adding that fresh air and all that kind of stuff is one of the things that, you know, primarily we don't want to be closed up in groups together.
Right.
You know, and second to that is in big groups. So, you know, they've lowered that down to 10 people now.
Yeah.
But if you go to the park today,
right,
there will be more than 10 people at the park today.
Oh, yeah. I look,
you know
I'm going,
so
I'm
I don't
going
see,
to the
like,
park.
why is that any different than me having
gotcha.
15 guys down to the cabin where we've got plenty of space? The only little caveat there is the sleeping in a cabin together.
Yeah.
You would
maybe you had to
kind
bring
of
a little
violate that
tent,
a little
maybe,
bit. But dudes, you know, a lot of people chose to be in tents last time around too.
Bring your own tent, guys.
And hopefully, you know, I know you can carry this thing and not know it, but, you know, hopefully anybody that wasn't feeling well would not come.
Right.
But anyway, I have it. I'm moving forward with it. And people that don't want to come, you know, again, people are welcome. And I wondered about capping it and saying, okay, I'm only going to the first 15 dudes. I thought about saying the first 10, but right now it looks like there's 11. And I don't want to tell somebody they can't if they're coming. And then we also have some dropouts. Almost always lose 3 or 4 people in the last week before it, for whatever reason they will decide not to come.
It's important. It's one of the more important things that I've done with Spiritual Underground was that retreat. I mean, so I know the importance of it. It's just like I said, so, you know, I got mixed emotions, you know, and like a lot of people do about it, you know.
Yep, me too, and I know that has, and I think there's actually some people out there that wish I'd cancel it so they wouldn't have to make that decision.
Sure, yeah,
You know what I mean?
right, yeah, absolutely.
They're like almost mad that I'm having it because now they got to make a decision on going or not going.
But that that group like that, you know, for somebody that's in their first 6 months, it's so important, man.
Everybody's had a magical moment down
Yeah.
there. Not everybody, but people. Every time we have it, there's people that have some magical moments during that time.
Yeah.
And I remember yours.
I definitely did. Incredible,
so
man.
every time there's somebody, at least one person at it has some kind of big, huge shift in their being that weekend.
Yeah, and it's worth it, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was like, you know, and we say around here, right? This one kind of cliche. If we can just reach one person,
Yes,
right, then
that's
it's all worth it.
That's right.
And it's the same thing when I'm thinking here. You know, if we can just reach one person, it's worth doing.
Yeah, because you're gonna catch some shit because people are gonna say, well, you could all die, or you gonna, you know what I mean? So you're gonna,
I get it. Yeah,
you're gonna catch.
I prayed
some
hard on this, man, and
Okay.
I have
You're gonna catch some
consulted
shit.
with my higher power my sponsor never tells me what to do. That's just not what happens in this thing. He'll listen to these things, so he's not terribly happy that I'm doing this necessarily. I mean, he doesn't agree with it. He leans towards more on the safety side. He does have some things that will put him in that compromising spot too, so that I can understand how those core things will come out to some extent where it will cause you to lean one way or the other on these issues too. And I think there's some temperament maybe things that cause you to be one way on the lean one way to this than the other. We got all the way out here to people who are quarantined and are never going to leave the house.
Sure,
right?
sure.
And we got other ones that are saying, fuck all the bullshit, I'm having a party.
Sure.
Right? And then we got everything in between.
Yes, we
Where
do.
you're at on
It's
that
America.
spectrum, so
Welcome
I lean
to
more-
America.
I'm leaning towards the more fuck that, let's have a party guy.
Yeah, I got you.
And my sponsor leans more towards on the
And
side of the
I'm
fence
in the
of
middle.
of the quarantine kind of end of things, and I try to stay out of all of it. Some of it's just pure natural, and I'm not really the fuck it in the party kind of thing, but I'm on that end of the scale from the middle.
I got you.
And I guess maybe my retreat is a fuck it, let's have a party kind of attitude,
Well, it's
But anyway, everybody had to find their way of dealing with this and walking through this, and that's the other thing. Some different words have come to me, and are meaning something different to me today. And I've said this on the podcast before, so it starts to being a little bit of a repeat. But when we say we're gonna your own conception, right? Mm-hmm. And when we say that recovery, we primarily are talking about your own conception of your higher power, own conception of God, God, your understanding, that kind of thing. I kind of had to grant you that in more places than just that. Your own conception of how you want to deal with this pandemic.
love and tolerance, man.
Yeah, your own conception of how you want to do this or do that, or how you want to operate in that, in what you're doing, and as long as it's not like having a direct impact on me, harming me, the obvious kind of things like that, or harming somebody else, I got to let you have your own conception of this.
You're talking about 4 weeks away too, so there's going to be some loosenings, and who knows what's going to happen. We got to talk,
Yep, and who knows? That's
Who
the other
knows,
thing.
yeah.
And flip side, things could go to shit, and I have to cancel it.
Yeah.
And I've kept that caveat out there with everybody.
Gotcha.
If things take a turn for the worse, and things, it may end up being that we have to last minute pull the plug on it too. So I'm open to that also.
I gotcha.
I'm not set in on it. I'm not like, dug in, we're going to do it, or,
I understand.
no matter what.
Yeah, because I'd be a little hesitant at this point. 4 weeks from now, it might be a little different story, and because I see your point and I see Chris's point. You know what I mean?
too.
I'm in the middle, man.
It was a tough decision, man. I sat on it for a long time. I mean, for a good period, maybe a month or something, of thinking about whether if I was going to. Because what I've been doing the last few years is try to get about 90 days notice to folks that this is when it's going to be. So that way they got plenty of time to arrange their schedule,
Sure.
and if they want to be there, they can do it.
Yeah.
And that is more than adequate amount of time to make it to make something happen that you want to happen. And I couldn't do it at 90 days. At 90 days is when this thing was first firing off, and I was like, at that point, who knew at all what this thing was going to do? I really wanted to deny it.
Gotcha.
I was a denier.
Yeah,
This can't be, and I still think it's blown out of proportion. Personally, I think if you didn't have the internet and you didn't have the media, and acting the way they're doing and all that, this wouldn't be half the deal as what it has been, because I think they amp it up. They just do.
I know.
It's no different than when we're getting ready to get a snowstorm. The whole goddamn news stations and everything. We don't have weather anymore. We have storm team.
Right. Sensational. Yeah, I definitely say that.
Sensationalize everything.
They do. I know a couple things. I told you I'm pretty ambivalent. It's kind of where it's left me. I sure in the hell don't want it, and I sure in the hell don't want to give it to anybody. But I'll give you an example of a problem with this. Okay, a friend of mine's father had lung cancer. They gave him 2 weeks to live. This was 4 weeks ago. Gave him 2 weeks. He died last week. He made it 4 weeks. Guess what? They put him as a death COVID-19.
Did they even test him?
Mm-hmm. They tested him. He died of COVID-19 when they only gave him 2 weeks to live 4 weeks ago.
So he was terminal. No matter how much time.
Yes. It's just
he could have went 6 months.
Yes, exactly.
He could have went. Who knows? Miracles happen.
So I know they're
get labeled with that. Yeah.
So
that swings the
stats. It's stats. So I know that for true. I know that truly happened.
Dad had a friend who's 94 that died the other day he contracted COVID. But at 94.
Yeah, 94. So
I
know. It's weird, man.
It is. It's a different.
It's just a time that did we ever think we'd live through times like this? The best thing. There's two things that I think that three things actually that's going to be great from this. One is we're not going to please don't rely on China for medicine and some of our major products. Okay, don't do that anymore. Two, people are going to be more awakened, and I don't think material things and money things on a lot of people. There's going to be a shift there.
Three.
Yeah, three. Damn it. I was rolling. I'll come back to that.
Yeah, one of the things that I really warms my heart about this is that, like, I come home from working yesterday, and I was coming down this dead-end street, and the bottom end of the street was full of kids on bicycles and skateboards and scooters. And I haven't seen that in a long time.
I know. The kids have been different. The
parents are out in the street with them, and here's kids. Because, like, I grew up riding my bicycle all around this neighborhood, man, and we were always out and about, I remember being a little kid. I get a new bike. I'd get up in my driveway. It's got that slope.
Yeah.
Come out there and go down to the end, turn around, come back up to the top of the slope, and then park for a minute and then do it again. And who knows how many times I did that some days. Yeah. And so I'm pulling down the street, and two bikes come flying down my driveway.
That's good to see.
Where two little kids are using my heel to get it going.
I see there was some kids.
My street's been a ghost town for years.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've seen that myself.
The occasional old people walking, out for a stroll, that kind of thing. But you didn't see kids out on bikes.
No, you didn't. No, kids are one of the things that I'm really noticing a difference in, and the respect towards older people. I mean, really, I'm definitely seeing that. But the third thing, and this is a little more morbid. Sorry, I'm going here. Probably is a podcast, but if there ever was a biological attack, I think we're more prepared for it finally.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. And we're more prepared for the next time one of these happens, I mean, it is also that this is not the first one. We've had this before, not in our lifetime, or not in my lifetime anyway. I heard somebody say there was a pretty bad one in like 68, 69.
Yeah, there was a flu epidemic then, yeah.
And that took a lot of people and made a lot more people sick.
Yeah.
So this is
I
not
lived through that
new.
one. Yeah, I made it through that one.
So there'll be some I guess it's another new pair of glasses kind of thing from recovery. Is that I just believe that there's there's always some sunshine behind that cloud. There's always a silver lining. There's always something. There's always good to be coming from something, even when it looks like at a white horse story by Bob Earl, and I think it's actually just an ancient parable kind of thing about the guy who has the beautiful white horse, and everybody wants to buy it, and the king wants to buy it, and everybody's in the village just talking about how lucky he is and how great it is that he has this white horse. And he says, I don't know if it's good that I have this horse. I don't know. All I know is I have this horse. Yeah. And the horse runs off, and the villagers come and they say, hey, it's terrible. I hate that your horse ran away. This is the worst thing that could happen. Terrible, terrible, terrible. You were right. It wasn't good that you had the horse because now it's ran away. And he said, I don't know that it's bad that this horse ran away. He said, all I know is that I once had a horse and it ran away. And so the horse comes back and brings 6 more horses just like it. And he's training the horses, and the villagers come around and they go, "Oh, it was great. You were right. It wasn't a bad thing that the horse ran away. Look, it brought you 6 new ones." And so him and his son are training and breaking the horses, and the son falls off of one of the horses and breaks his legs. And well, during that, the man said, "I don't know that it's good that all these horses came back. All I know is that I had a horse and it ran away and it came back and brought more." And so then the son falls off the horse and breaks his leg. The villagers come and say, "You were right. It wasn't good that you got these horses. You were right. Your son fell off and broke his leg. It's terrible." "I don't know that it's terrible."
Yeah.
And so what ends up being at the end of the story is that they come around the country comes around to round up able young men to take them off to war, and a war that against a superior force that they knew they wouldn't be able to win. And his son is recuperating from broken legs, and he got left at home and didn't have to go to this war to die.
Gotcha.
And the thing is,
I like that.
Bob Earl says, it's the judgment, to judge these things as good or bad and assign that to them, What the hell do I know, right?
Right, yeah. Is there any absolute truths,
Right, yeah. So, there'll be some good that comes off of this, and you just named a few, and there's probably an endless amount of good that comes off of it, because we're better prepared for the next time that something similar happens, or even anything in the realm of it. And I think it'll bring us. It seems that the universe has some kind of reset button every once in a while that ends up having to happen. I think wars do it. Wars look awful, don't they?
Yeah, they do, yeah.
But war, like World War II, brought this country together like nothing else, right?
Right. I agree with that.
9/11, awful, but our country came together like never before in 9/11, in the aftermath of that. So every time some kind of thing seems to have, hell, it happens in our own lives, right? Our own bottoms are that, right?
Sure.
Our own bottoms on drug and alcohol is exactly that. A huge, big tragedy that looks like, everybody watching us, it looks like 9/11 on a personal level, right? This dude is crashing and burning. And turns out that, at some point it ends up being a turning point for our lives that we, were, I have a word I'm trying to say, okay, but we're just fantastically better after that as a result of this bottom.
Yes, I like the way you think, because I'm at that point too. I think something good is going to come out of this. I know it has for me already, because guess what? I was wanting to grow. Maybe somebody needs to want to grow, and they're going to grow during this time. But another thing I was thinking about when you were telling me that story, because I love that story. In this thing with attachment, or what we're attached to, because I know I'm not a Buddhist of any stretch of the imagination, but one of the Buddhist doctrines, attachment to desire, and I can do that with alcoholism and drug addiction. In sobriety, I started seeing what image I was attached to of myself, the attachment that I have had since I was a kid. I'm always subconscious. You got these things have been with us all our lives, and these certain attachments that are really bad for you. I'm talking about maybe an attachment to sexual desire, the way you've grown up. Any of these attachments that are unhealthy that we have, attachment of our image, or what we think of what we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to look. But that story
house I own, the girl I have on my arm, the car I
drive. These attachments, and those will all melt away. And I'm thinking that in this COVID-19 crisis, the attachment's going to start looking different. And I think that's where our growth is going to come from. At least I hope so. But you start peeling away that onion, man. And it's like I say, I start seeing this attachment of my image, like my fear. I don't look good enough. Or I'm having this attachment. It's just weird attachments that you'll recognize in yourself. That until you recognize those weird attachments you've got to self, you can't free yourself.
Yep. And there's things that will block me from doing that as I start that whole peeling the onion theory.
Yeah, man.
That I will never see this here as long as this is standing in the way.
That's right.
And I didn't know that I need to work on what's behind that, right?
I know.
But I work on what it looks like in front of it, and then I peel that back, and then I see this other thing and go, oh, wow, there's that, and that's really a never-ending story. I guess you could, maybe those people like the Dalai Lama, maybe, or, some of these people like Gandhi and some of these other, Martin Luther King, maybe, and these other kind of people who have transcended that. Maybe they made it to that level. there probably was still another peel of onion sitting
Yeah,
there.
for sure.
thinking,
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think that's a gift. I think that's the thing. What my journey is whether I got 3 years or I got 30 years or whatever I have. It's to never stop growing, and to
Continue.
to continue that growth, because we easily backslide. I mean, it's part of, you're a human being, for heaven's sakes, and so you're going to backslide. But how quick you get aware of that and get yourself out of it. But
Yeah, that awareness, too.
Yeah, that awareness. Oh, I always talk about awareness, how important awareness is, and the right awareness. But it all comes down to where we started. About the true gift of this is to be who you were meant to be. The true you. The life that was meant to be. That was meant to be. The person you were meant to be.
Yep. To be genuine,
To be
in integrity,
Yeah.
to be have some consistency around my life where I'm the same dude no matter where I'm at. Put off the masks and just wear the one that is Dan.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's the gift that I'm starting to see in these last. It took me 2.5 years just to get to this point. These last 3 months, that's what's all of a sudden, all these things were shed, all these attachments were shed, all this way I looked at life, way I looked at women, the way I looked at myself. All of a sudden, I'm starting to see who this guy is, who he really truly is, and
So let's just get around to what was the shift that made you do this? What happened? I know we got a lot of, because we can fill in the blanks between when you were in your early 20s and now if you want to. I mean, and I'm more than happy. I sit here and think about, there was a couple times in my head I was wanting to take you back to where you left off in your story. But there was also something else that said, no, don't do that. Just shut up and
let go.
Let this go where it goes.
Yeah.
Don't try to drive it. But I do want to, because you've mentioned it a couple times here about something shifting in your being in the last few months.
Well, I tell you probably the most important thing is with ego consciousness, for example, my ego, we hit on shame earlier, right? I had the shame pride. That's where my ego was. It was shame that I'm not good enough, and I had this pride. Well, you know what? I think I'm better. Mm-hmm. I couldn't ever balance those two, man. Okay, and so I was always in protection mode, man. If you got shame and you got that pride, what's it going to be? There's going to be this huge, thick chain connecting the two, right? That's what was there. That was me, protection. So I always built this wall. So when this awareness starts coming into me, of course I learn why, but a lot of my shit is almost, I hate to say narcissistic. I hate to say that word, but it's so self-centered, which is self-centeredness is root of one of the things the books talks about, probably number one, but it was that self-centered, all life. My life was designed to either make my life softer, gentler, easier, right? Or better. Everybody was in my life. Everything was in my life was about my mind thinking, okay, how am I going to rearrange this for my advantage, either a softer, gentler way or to my advantage. You start recognizing that self-centeredness. Some of mine went over to narcissism because I was so I was image oriented, which was I didn't think I was good enough. I think sometimes I think I'm better. So it was just all this fake bullshit. Until I was like, you know what, man, you're going to just be yourself. You're just going to accept yourself, and you're going to just let fucking go, and somebody doesn't like you, they don't like you. Somebody does like you, they do like you, and I let go of all that self-centered attachment. I did, man, and I could, and it just was like I say. You asked what was the catalyst of all this? The catalyst was sobriety.
Yeah. But you're going back a few months, because I know that one of the things I've noticed about you is you'll be around pretty active for a while. Then I won't see you for a little while.
That's work.
And then you're back usually, and when you're back with like a fervor kind of thing almost. Like you come blasting in.
Yeah, that's the bad part. I travel for my job. I travel, man. I travel every week. I leave Sunday nights or Monday mornings, and I don't get back till Friday mornings. That has been a battle that I got to look at, because we heard a guy who talked the other day in our Tuesday night Spiritual Underground Zoom, was talking about his job and how Chris was telling him, well, you might want to look at that job's eating your lunch. You might want to look at that, and mine's not eating my lunch, but mine's causing me to miss out on all the beautiful people that I love. When I walked in Spiritual Underground, I was like, I'm home. Yeah. I'm freaking home, and so I might have to look at that because I'm gone every week. And if I go to a meeting maybe in West Virginia, Ohio, or something like that, it's just not the same because that connection's not there that I had with you guys, Yeah. So that's the only reason why.
All over the world, but that's one of the reasons. I think that's the reason behind the home group concept is that you get plugged in with some people and you begin to build relationships, deep, meaningful relationships with a group because you can't. I know. When I was early, I did this little thing where I was like I would tell you that I was going to lots of meetings, and plus people told me to do that, right? Go to lots of different meetings. Well, what I think at some level what I was doing was that allowed me to not get close to anybody because I could always be with a different group, and I could tell you I'm going to lots of different meetings, and that sounded like a dude who was really trying to stay sober and doing what he's supposed to be doing. If you looked at my meeting sheet, if I had one, it would have a lot of different meetings on it. But I never would stay at the same place and allow people to get to see me and know me.
Right, I did that.
Now I had a couple. There's an exception to that. I did have some solid ones that I was doing, but I know that some of that was bouncing, was not allowing myself to be seen. I think somebody else said that the definition of intimacy is me being me and me letting you see me.
Right, for sure. Yeah, you being vulnerable too. Vulnerability is part of it, letting you see me. Right. Vulnerability is freaking key to growth, man. Yeah. But it's funny how, because I'm telling you, my first AA meeting probably was 26 years ago, which is sad. It's a sad truth. In and out relapse, and I've had a couple years sobriety without work, without going. I had 2 years sobriety without going to meetings, in my past, but it's funny how you find a group that you're like, damn, I can connect with these guys. And there's some meetings I get in and I've for whatever reason just felt like I couldn't. It's funny how, but that home group's important because of that. And you're dead on about that. That's what the key to that home group is, to being accountable and just getting everybody deeper friendships, Yep,
doing things outside the rooms, getting to know each other. It's one of the things that I always try to, one of the things, I'm getting ready to go down to the cabin for a few days, and it's turkey season starts Wednesday, and I'll go down Tuesday night, stay to Sunday, and one of the things that I've always tell my people I'm working with, is this is an opportunity to expand your support system. I am not your only person. And when I'm out of pocket down there with no cell service, I would suggest that you call some people that you don't normally call.
Right.
And, and I always give them the opener, hey, tell them I told you to do that. If you don't know what to say when you call them, you don't have nothing to say. Well, hey, I'm tell you the truth, my sponsor's out of town, and he said I should call some people I don't normally talk to.
Gotcha. Okay, so beautiful.
And I said I'm sure that because that's enough. I mean, somebody calls you and says that, and somebody calls you from recovery, you're gonna be open to it. We always think we're bothering people, right?
Yes, we do. We do.
See, to expand that support net, and I need to have a core support group, and it can really only be so big, right? Because I can only really manage so much of that in
absolutely.
my life at one point, and actually give that energy to those people.
Yeah.
Frankly, today that term generally winds up being as much as anything my people I'm working with, the people I'm sponsoring.
Gotcha.
I sponsor a lot of people, and but there's also some people around like Shane, and obviously my sponsor,
right,
and certain other people that I stay close and tight to. But on the flip side of that is also to have a big, broad, wide net too.
I gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then maybe I'm not just as close with all of them.
Okay. Right. Yeah. You're just it's natural. You're going closer to others, and
I want that net to be as wide and as broad and as deep as I can possibly get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that if I am on the tight wire and begin to fall, I want a really nice safety net.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is all about, man. making you as a human being to be able to shine that light and for others to see that light.
Yep,
You know,
it
it's what it's all about. And
I think that's what life is.
yeah, it's what life is. And
It's having
yeah.
it's the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey thing. It's having having a struggle in our lives that we overcome. We persevere, and then we go back and we show other people who are having the same problem how you made it through.
Yeah, I love Joseph Campbell, man. He's one of my favorite. You know,
If you haven't watched that movie Finding Joe, anybody out there on the world in this thing listening to this, Finding Joe is what it's called. I think it's a little bit hard to find. It's not just everywhere. But it's a movie, and it's about Joseph Campbell, and it's
about his story.
No,
okay.
no, it's a. Oh, how to put it? I don't know what it would be labeled as, but it kind of it's a what did you say earlier about inner you were saying rumination and inner
self-reflection.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing. It was a show that will cause you to reflect on yourself and where you're at, and it's just wrapped all around Joseph Campbell's thoughts on how it's got a lot of people. Deepak Chopra's talks in it, and it's got a lot of other people that are like will be considered spiritual guides.
What's that title again? Because I definitely
Finding Joe,
because I
you'd like it. Okay. I've watched it a number of times.
Big Joe.
First time I watched it was a yoga teacher training that introduced me to it. We had movie night one night. We sit down and watch that, and I loved it so much I came home and found it and watched it again that night.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
In that group, I felt a little distracted. People were ordering pizzas and doing other kind of stuff, and I was I found myself getting a little distracted. And I probably watched it a number of times since then.
Fascinating man. And there's a YouTube thing with Joseph Campbell that he was a guy named Bill Moyers was a reporter back in the 80s. And Bill Morris, before he died, Joseph Campbell died in 83. Maybe a year before he died, Moore did a series of interviews with him,
really?
And his talks, and he talking about fascinating man.
Check that out
Yeah,
too, yeah.
It's just a Bill Morris and Joseph Campbell. You know, because he's it's story. You know, I just love it. You know, he was so fascinated with story. You know, mythological stories and.
Right.
But the thing about what he says, though, is how those mythological stories are everyday stories in human beings. You know what I mean? Everyday life.
They're parables.
Like, that's all it is, and it's kind of cool.
Same things about, that's what, and I really do like that. That allowed me to start listening to the Bible stories and some other things that I would have said, that I poo-pooed because it couldn't be real, right?
Right. Amen, man. Yeah.
But I will just, and I think one of the other ones is, but I will not say a thing about like reading Pinocchio to my kids.
Yeah, good.
And they don't go. We all ain't sitting around going, that shit ain't real.
Right.
And I love it. One of my favorite things. Another one that made that hit home was listening to Jordan Peterson and explain like the archetypes inside of like those things, like Pinocchio and Geppetto wishing upon a star and the significance of that. Reaching up and wishing up there and asking something to help him, and how what he wanted to do, he wanted his creation here to have a voice.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, that's what he looked at.
These underlying things, and if you look in, he's doing stuff on the biblical stuff too.
Yeah,
and he's just getting ready to start Jordan Peterson's getting ready to start another series on his interpretation of the biblical stories, and I love to listen.
Yeah, I would listen to that because I first of all I know as the Bible is stories. That's what it is. But
to teach you something.
But it's to teach you something.
And
you cannot.
Every story and isn't that the way we do things?
Yes.
All the stories in the back of that book. While we're sitting here doing this, right?
Life
Everything
is story.
Wrapped up about, and that's how we tell people. That's how we teach people and show is by the art of storytelling.
That's Joseph Campbell's foundation. When if you watch that movie, which I will watch that movie, if you watch those old interviews, that's what Joseph Campbell.
It's interesting how we will put some bias on certain ones, and reject them out of hand because they, for whatever, frankly, from some faulty teaching that our little kid inside rejected it some level or
Sure.
another.
Well, I told you
early
earlier
on.
where I rejected in,
Yeah.
what, 4th or 5th, 6th grade when they said God was made in man's image. Oh, come on. I know there's not a man up there in that sky. Come on.
Yeah.
So, so I rejected things like that. But the thing
And
that.
if he was up there,
Yeah.
the other thing taught me was he was keeping score, and I knew I already
Yeah.
crossed the line.
Right,
and there was
right,
no, fuck it now, right?
Right, for
Catch out of
sure.
the bag, might as well play.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. That's why the gift of having your own conception of a higher power is so important. Beautiful.
I got touched last night. I want to just hit on this. There's a guy I watch on YouTube, and he does he's basically an arborist, and he does a lot of stuff with chainsaws and axes and stuff, and he's wilder than hell. And he's fun, and he acts goofy, and he's got a lot of followers. And I can't even remember what I think it's like Buck and Billy Ray or something. And you watch this guy for a little bit, and there's something interesting about him. But this morning, I think last night or something, I watched one, and he started going down the path of what we're talking about, this kind of thing. And he said, "Look, I get up in the morning and hit my knees," and he said, "And I worship my way of thinking about this is simply love."
Love
And
that.
I invite love to follow me all day today and to help guide me in my actions.
Wow.
And he said, some of y'all may say God, some of y'all may say some other things. I just simply say love.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And he's talking about, and he said, and it don't matter what you call it. It doesn't have any idea.
Yeah.
But if you can get with this thing that's actually working, this universal force out there, if you can get in alignment with it and carry it and actually begin to rely on it, you're going to watch it carry you places you never thought you could go. And that was just like last night. I'm sitting there listening to this guy that I just was watching because he sharpens chainsaws and axes and repairs axe handles and stuff like this. And seems to be relatively cuts out, learning how to better cut down a tree. And then he comes off with that.
Gotcha.
Huh.
So
Well, there was something about this whole thing. I was drawn to something else.
Oh yeah,
Not just how to sharpen an axe.
That's the cool thing. That's the secret. Okay, now you're hitting upon it in AA and sobriety when you're truly open-minded, you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're growing like hell. There it lies a secret, a weird secret of things happening for a reason. Coming. Some people call it like synchronicities and stuff like that, and you start really seeing it happen, and you're knowing, whoa, there's something to this, man.
When you get to play witness to that stuff.
Yeah, you start playing witness to it, and there's just so many gifts, man. So many gifts, and
teaching that to other people, that's another one of the things that my sponsor taught me. That's that whole concept behind a new pair of glasses in recovery, that I start seeing things in a different way, right? And my perception, that's another thing we say, right? This is a disease of perception. It's how I'm perceiving things. It goes right back to that old judgment thing and that Bob Earl story of the horses. Absolutely. Perceiving this stuff. So now not only when I see this stuff and being able to see this stuff that was happening in my life that I thought were coincidences and realizing, hey, that's one of those ones that happen, and I had to be taught to do that, right?
Yeah.
Because my default position is to judge that stuff as either something less than what it really is, right?
Absolutely.
And to raise my awareness, and I can start seeing things in another level, whether or not, Greg, if that's true or not. To be honest, I could be fucking nuts. I could be plumb fucking nuts thinking some of the things that I'm thinking are miracles and the things, and a lot of people want to discount that. Fact is, it just keeps on happening. So why in the world wouldn't you continue to operate on that level, right?
That's beautifully said, man. Yeah.
And so then to also start telling my guys that I'm working with and people that when there's something like that happens and they're telling me some story and I can go, you know what that is, don't you? And they're like, well, the horse ran away. What do you mean?
Right.
No, man, that horse is going to bring back more horses.
Yeah.
Did you see? Do you understand how big a miracle it is that your daughter is sitting doing this with you now when not so long ago that had never happened? And be able to point out these little things of these things that happen in somebody's life, and then before long they start bringing them to you because they become starting to have their own pair of glasses now.
That's right.
And they're going, you'll never guess what happened to me today, right?
Yeah, right. That was the gift that another gift Shane gave me. You know how he was. He was seeing. He say, "Oh my God, that's there for a reason." And I just didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. And you start watching people, you know they believe it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, I don't want to miss out on that.
Yeah, I think that some of that is a little bit like that. It's not happening for me, so therefore I will reject it for you.
Yeah.
But it's probably the fact of the matter
Yeah.
is, well, that it may not be happening for you. Then again, maybe you don't have a teacher that helps you be aware of that it's happening, so you don't think it's happening for you.
Right, exactly, absolutely, man. Couldn't have said it better. And that is a deeper gift that comes from all this. Is what we're talking about now. Because you can't. It's the five senses. You can't see it. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. You can't hear it. And some people like without those five senses, they don't care. It's just not happening. But damn it, there's a level there that I know exists now. You know exists now.
Yep.
And that's
this place, this wood shop here was built for me. I have very little money in this. It was gifted to me essentially. And one thing is I reject gifts. Right. My first initial thing is no, you don't have to do that. I don't need your charity, whichever where I want to hang it on instead of being allowed a gift come in my life. The cabin down there, I talk about that. It hits me lately. That 20 years ago we built that thing. I had no idea what higher power was doing 20 years ago when he was doing that. Turns out he was creating a place where dudes like couldn't have those experiences like you were talking about a minute ago, where I get to take somebody, go down and do fifth step work with. Best I can tell here, 20 years ago, God had me, my dad, my brother build a cabin so that we can use it to help other people recover from drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. It's
for 20 years it looked like a hunting cabin.
Yeah, right. That's
and I didn't know, and that's one of the ones where it just woke up to me one day I was actually sharing a meeting and that popped out. I had no idea what God was doing 20 years ago when we built that cabin. And look what I get to do with it today. What I've been gifted with. And another one of the things that goes right along with that, if higher power truly has, and if I really do believe that these gifts are coming to you and I, my other friends, our other friends, because as a result of this, to not share this stuff is actually somewhat spitting in the face of that higher power, right?
I agree.
I'm handed a gift.
Yeah, you are.
And then I'm gonna stick it in my back pocket and don't show nobody and don't share it with anybody.
Right. Yeah.
That's not what we're
it's not.
asked to do on this. Here is to pick up these gifts and use them to be a maximum service to our higher power and our fellows.
Somebody's listening to you today, and you're convinced. Like you said, I love what you said earlier, and so you might have a chance to say, maybe it haven't happened to me, but. Damn, I do want it to happen to me, though. And so to just kind of get that open-minded. But
yeah, I'd like to have some of that.
Yeah, I'd like to have some of that because you do want some of that.
But it ain't possible for me. Somebody when we were just coming around recovery early on, these other people are getting it, but that can't happen for me.
Oh, I was like after 2 years.
Yeah.
Sobriety.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, I tell people the opposite, man. That's what, because I get hopped up on when I'm giving this thing away, and I think that's part of what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, you are,
man.
Some
enthusiasm. Because if this is not something that looks appetizing, why would you want it?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you are. You
got to make it look like it's going to taste good.
Yeah, you do a good job of that too, by the way.
You don't have to try that, right? I mean, it's true in my life. It is, anybody wants to I have one thing I do have is I have a sponsor that's been with me from get-go.
Right.
From this past 5 years, from when the miracle happened for me. And he can testify to these things that are occurred in my life.
Yeah.
I have other people that can testify that these things have occurred,
Right.
So if you need some more proof other than my lips running, talking about it, because I can't sit here on a podcast and tell you something happened, didn't happen. Right?
Right.
I mean, that would be against every spiritual principle I ever had, would to sit here and start making shit up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No, this for sure.
Yeah, and the fact is that and that's the other gift is to say to people, as you're working with them, that man, this is going to happen for you, because in the beginning, right, you're all bothered, you're pointing your fingers outside every place. It's that fault, that work, wife, kids, world's against me.
Right.
Everything is outside, right? That's also
sure.
the fundamental teaching of spiritual growth from the beginning of time, is that it's not all that shit that's outside that the deal is, right? And the fact of the matter is, once I healed my insides and took this thing on the inside, just the inside job, those things really didn't change. Those outer things really didnn't change. And here's another fundamental premise is that I can't change that stuff, right? I'm powerless to change these things outside, right? She is not going to change. He is not going to change. Work is not going to change. All that ain't none of that's just going to change. So if I actually am dependent upon those things changing, I am fucked.
Yeah, you are.
Because that's not.
Right.
But what happens is I work on myself and I do this other stuff where I actually change, right?
Right.
And then when I change, that shit don't bother me no more.
No, it's not. You're amen again, man. Absolutely, because that's where I'm at. It's it took me a while
I'm so
to understand
focused
that.
on that outer shit, and that's the thing. It's a common thing. It's a deal we work with every time when you get somebody new and you're working with them. And again, there's nothing more fulfilling in my world today, in my life today, than to help somebody else recover from this thing and to pass these 12-step tools along to other people. But it does get a little exhausting at times to listen to this.
I understand, man.
Complaining about the outside world, going, just hang on.
Yeah.
Just do this work. Everything's going to be okay. It's going to get better. Just do this work.
Yeah, because you were there. You were there at one time.
Yeah.
And I was there.
I had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Keep on bringing me back.
Yeah.
Let's just do this.
Yeah.
Where are you at on your 4th step?
Yeah.
Where are you at on your
Beautiful
where
said,
you know, just bring them back to the work.
Yeah.
Just do that.
Yeah, and then that's a good sponsor like that. That's what it's all about. Just kind
I had a
of
very great one model for me,
Yeah.
Another thing, another gift if I didn't use, that'd be
I agree.
a little disrespectful.
Yeah, but it's like through all this, we were talking about Joe Campbell's story. Through all this, as an alcoholic and addict who's still struggling, or someone who's got, don't have a whole lot of sobriety, that story could be anything. Your story could be anything. You could change anything if you stay sober and go about the right way.
Yep.
Your whole story will change. I couldn't imagine. I was meant to wait till I was 56 for all this started happening, right? So what?
Yeah.
Better late than never. But you got guys who are trying at a young age, which is tougher. The story, you can rewrite your whole story.
You can.
It's wow.
I never thought, I really thought I'd be working for the same place all my life, and would that be it? And as my sponsor, another one of those things, when my sponsor was telling me some stuff early on, which I still, use today too when I'm working with somebody, that don't get too attached to that, because when you get this recovery thing under your feet,
right,
you might find out you don't actually like that shit.
That's a definite
that's exactly
true.
what
Definitely
happened to
true.
me, man.
Yeah.
It's like, this is not working for me anymore.
Right.
But I still couldn't turn loose of that, right?
Right.
I'll just say it this way. A smart man would say, yeah, fuck that, I quit. Right? But I couldn't do that.
No.
I just hung on to that security post because I needed that, right? And I would tell you, I got bills to pay. I got, I can't, whatever. Well, higher power said, okay, enough of that, and ripped me off of that damn security post and said, yeah, that is not what you're going to do.
Right. That's right. It wasn't your decision.
I tried to tap you on the shoulder and tell you you didn't like it anymore, but you wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
So it said, boom, and ripped it off like the ripping of the Band-Aid kind of thing, But then it also gave me a soft landing and said, oh, yeah, even though I'm ripping you off that, they're going to give you a good severance, and they're going to pay for your insurance for a while.
Yeah.
So that you can get something else going.
Because you can be your true self.
Yeah.
Who you want to be.
This thing, which actually ends up being where, with this current gig, I get to drive my own life.
Mm-hmm.
I get to do things I actually truly do enjoy. I like working with my hands and fixing shit. I like coming out here in the shop and putting stuff and making things. And I get to drive my own schedule. Therefore, it gives me the availability to help people do this thing with more flexibility in my life to do it according to how other people's availability lands.
You're the driver, brother.
Yeah, and so you look at all those. That's what I mean. You look at how all those things play out in your life, and you start putting that together, and you got somebody in your life that helps you see it.
Yeah.
And the same thing will happen for you, right?
The crazy thing, right? When you look at your life, and in my life too, for example, and where you're at right now. 3 or 4 years ago, something happened that's triggered something to happen here, something triggered to happen something here, so it's all connected, guys. That's that's what you start seeing, there's that connection.
Yep, how that happened in order and to make
how that 7 years ago that had to happen to make this happen. Oh, what is that, man?
Right. Yeah, and you go back, you want to step that on back, you talk about, health. Okay, I come out breach. I got taught that early on. I needed that pills would be what I'd do to fix my problem when I was whatever you said 5 years old or some kind of thing.
6th grade I was on adage.
So you get all that, and you go, well, maybe that shit had to happen too, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 56 years had to happen before you were going to get it. 45 for me, I feel real fortunate that I only bounced around for 4 years. When you talk about 20-something,
26, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy. Had a hell of a ego, didn't I? Hell of a hard will.
but come up with the acceptance of that's just the journey, right? It's just what it was.
That's exactly where I'm at. Yeah, it's part of it. Part of my story. Part of my
That's
journey.
Part of the talk about, again, that thing's the principles behind that. I will say that, Christopher's methodology and the TSSR is what actually brought me to a level in a very short amount of time and quickly, and allowed me to blast off with this recovery thing. The roots of that is obviously the stuff in the 12 Steps in the Alcoholics Anonymous book. So that's where I got what I have in my life today, is from those teachings.
Gotcha.
I would venture to say the past few months has also been with your exposure to Christopher and TSSR. Has been
Yeah,
what's
it's helped
had
out a
you
lot.
help
Yeah,
and had
for
this
sure.
little,
Yeah, it's a deeper. It's a deeper look at the psychology of it all too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Patterns and all that stuff from youth. From childhood, because childhood, those subconscious thinking patterns start first 7 years, man.
Yeah, I'd like to think I'm better than Pavlov's dogs.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
to be honest, I'm really not.
Gotcha.
You ring my bell a certain way, and I play a certain tune.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
Female pays attention to me. I have a default mode. I'm gonna shine my light.
Sure.
I'm
gonna be a
become
peacock.
this thing, right?
spread your wings, spread your feathers,
Right, yeah.
peacock.
And when my dad comes, sees me sitting and not doing anything, I got a whole hang up about feeling that I need to prove to him that I'm a productive person. And I have a whole nother thing where if I'm sitting still not doing something and he catches me at 50 years old this
Yeah.
year.
Gotcha.
Last year turned 50.
Yeah.
My dad lives with me, and when he catches me doing nothing, I have some guilt wrapped around there that I have to
Yeah, isn't that funny?
be aware of, and and it doesn't get me the way it used to, but I still know it's there. That that I was, and he didn't train me that way. That's some of me training me. Almost,
That's for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But there was definitely modeled for me that he's a busybody dude. So therefore, I saw a man who stayed busy all the time, and therefore I thought men stayed busy all the time.
Gotcha.
So that I better stay busy all the time.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And wrap my self worth up about whether just how good a man I am by how busy I am.
Yeah. That's it. It's that subconscious pattern that's been ingrained in you.
Yeah,
And
I would like to think we all have it. Our ego doesn't want to believe we got trained. We want to think
Right, yeah.
we're our own men, we're our own
Right,
self-built.
sure.
We want to reject that whole thing and to start being open to that idea that no, I was actually trained, and actually, therefore, if I was trained, I can be untrained too.
Gotcha, man. Yeah, that's exactly right, man. Like the beautiful sycamore tree when the bark stripped from it, and it becomes white and beautiful.
Right,
and that's what I was. I had to strip all that damn bark.
Yep. That's another great metaphor for it, no doubt, man.
Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate you inviting me, man. I really do. And this was pretty darn cool, and kind of get your ideas. I always liked your ideas, and appreciate you letting me share some of my ideas. And this is a gift. This is part of that gift of sobriety, man.
I like the way these episodes are evolving to more of a sharing ideas kind of thing than a telling a story, just straight up chronological story.
Right.
There's some value in that too.
Right.
This is more fun for me.
Yeah, well, it's more fun for me too. That's the thing I learned. I used to think I was introverted in all these years, and it's crazy. You get this idea, hey, I'm introverted, man, but I'm really not. I get sober and I realize I'm not. It's crazy.
Same thing happened to me. I would have never thought. There's the worst thing in the world for me was to have to stand up and say something in front of other people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. God.
I remember work putting us through these same place. They put us through these bullshit little programs where we were to be better robots.
You know what's funny is like I used to I'd get nervous, like you just said, if I had to speak, even in AA meeting at first, I had to speak, I get nervous, and I heard something that Anthony Hopkins, the actor, the great actor Anthony Hopkins said. He said this.
He's one of us too. His stories out there.
Yes, he said something that did not register because I was like, what the hell is he talking about? They asked him, does he get nervous? Before he acts or acts. He said, oh, no. Nervousness for acting is vanity. And I'm like, what the Fucking you kidding? Getting nervous to me is stops you. You're not vain. You're scared to death. You're not. What's the vanity of that? Think about it though. You're thinking of yourself. That's what's making you nervous. You don't want to be embarrassed. It's the vanity of self. It took me forever to understand what the hell he was talking about.
Yeah, that is really good. Yeah. Yeah. Boat had us do some kind of thing where we had to give a presentation. You had to come up with something and do it. And even though there was this, that was still back in the age when I had some drive to like want to climb the ladder. There was really nothing harder for me in the world. And I mean, it was just awful for me to go show up and do that, you know. Plus you couldn't do it, you know, I couldn't drink beforehand.
Right.
You know, the things was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, at work, you know, you just going to have to do that. And I still, in any of those opportunities where I had like that, especially work, because to think of that, I was an adult, but felt like I was 10.
Right. I know that feeling. And most alcoholics and addicts know that.
Yeah. And I don't feel like I even, you know, I feel like I came to maturity at 45 years old when I got sober.
Well, maybe 59 now. I started at 56, but I made it at 59.
Yeah, because I really do. You know, looking back, and I wouldn't have told you that before then. But ultimately, I was operating like I was a kid.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, definitely, man. For sure.
And to just have to stand up there and like have no faith. And that's another thing too. You know, what I speak about and share about today, I have faith in.
Yeah, cool.
So that way it makes it a lot easier to share about it, right?
Yeah.
Well, back then when I had to do the work thing, we had to invent something, you know, and it was supposed to be work related, but I didn't have any real conviction of what I was trying to talk about.
Right. Yeah, it's just the ego telling you to talk.
Yeah, and that, you know, and it was even more so than ego. Ego really didn't even want me to talk because it was scared to death or whatever. You know, it didn't want me. Like maybe it was that vanity. I didn't want to look bad. Didn't want to look stupid.
Exactly.
Nothing,
it's
an
Anthony Hopkins syndrome.
Work was making me do this. It was a condition. You know, felt like a condition of my employment. And the other thing is, you know, you can't do. You know, I can't tell you I can't do it, right? I can't admit failure.
No, you can't. No.
So that's not an option either. So here you're in this world where, you know, you don't want to do it. They're making you. You could probably get out of it, but you can't admit you're a failure. And I remember standing up there doing that. You know, and I'll tell you what that was the same kind of feeling that I had when I got married. When I had to stand up in front of those people and do that. This probably was maybe up there in the top 3 or 4 times that I've been uncomfortable in front of people in my life. It gets a little, because frankly I didn't want to get married. I felt like I was being coerced into it.
Did you really?
Yeah. Again, at the time I didn't know that. That's looking back. That is hindsight thing of going. I just thought that's what you were supposed to do.
Me too,
right?
man.
As a man and as a this and that.
I understand
what
that.
you
I
do.
understand that, buddy. I do.
You know, you graduate high school, you get a career, whether if that included college or not. You know, I mean, I was a little bit told, yes, you go to college. That was something else I couldn't seem to do. And you get married. And create a family and buy a house, and you know, and
that's
here's this formula that you're supposed to follow. You know, and there was something in my core at those times, and I would look at that today and go, you know, today I can tell when I'm off path, right?
Yeah.
When I have that feeling today that I had in front of all those people at work trying to give this presentation of something I didn't believe in, or when I have that uncomfortable feeling in front of that same kind of thing of being up in front of there doing something I knew I didn't really want to be doing, today I don't do that.
I gotcha.
I can be aware of that and go, yeah, you know what? No.
Gotcha. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. But then I didn't have those tools to do that.
No. It is. It's tools that have been given to us. We got these tools to be given, and we got the higher power and then self-reflection, you know, in the right way, and that's what it's all about, you know.
Yeah, and when I feel like it, when I have these great ideas or any of this other stuff, you know, I got people in my life to talk to too, so that, you know, like I said, another thing, it's actually come to me really recently, and Christopher shared it with me. He said, you know, ultimately I'm accountable to 3 elements in my life: my higher power, my sponsor, and my close support group. And he went on to say, of which I count you as one of that, as a part of that. You know, so if I'm like touching base with my higher power and he's saying I'm on the right path, and I'm touching base with my sponsor and he's saying I'm okay, and I'm touching base with you and other guys around me, and they're saying I'm okay, well, then therefore I'm going to have to believe that if it acts like a duck, quacks like a duck, and walks like a whatever, there must be a duck. If these three things are saying I'm okay, then I'm probably okay, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Flip side of that is if some of that's saying I'm not okay, I probably need to look at that too, right?
That's right.
It's like, that's a stupid fucking idea.
Oh, yeah. That's why.
So, well, okay, my sponsor would never ever say that, but he might offer me something and that would allow me to give a moment's thought about whether if this is really a good idea or not.
Right. That's a great way of looking at it, because that's why I kept going out for what my first meeting was 26 years ago. Was that in a nutshell, Yeah.
And that nudge from above kind of thing too. I mean, you learn to rely on that. That really is,
It's a
lot
part
of
of
people
you.
talk about having a relationship with their higher power, and I agree with that. In my morning prayers, and it's been a part of them since I've gotten sober this time around. I always like to say since my current sobriety date, is asking for a deeper reliance on my higher power, because I think that counts more than the relationship I have. If I can rely on this power to be okay and to guide me and to do all that, that means more to me than the term relationship with my higher power.
Isn't
to be able to rely on it like a child would rely on a dutiful parent.
Isn't it just you're relying on your higher power, and within that reliance you're also reliance on yourself.
Sure.
It's a dichotomy. And
Because I think it's
higher
that same
powers
thing.
within us.
That same element. Well, I just said of those three things, and you were saying something about the perfect storms and threes.
Yeah,
and all this.
yeah,
There is
yeah.
something to that number three. In
Oh,
the
for
Trinity.
sure. Oh, hell yeah, I've
God,
figured that
Holy-
damn thing.
The Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
It's a force of change, man.
Mind, body, spirit, all these
Oh, yeah.
different things that come in threes, and I do, and I might have said this here too, from a higher power standpoint, I do believe there's something out there.
Yeah.
That's one element.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something inside of me too.
Sure,
That's
absolutely.
another element.
Yeah.
And there's something that happens when we come in this group in commune, in a group, in these connections, like at the retreat or in meetings and other things. That's a third.
I agree, man.
And
I
I think
agree.
those to me, that's
Yeah.
like the trinity of a higher power
Yeah.
and all, and that still goes right with that same thing. That's exactly parallel with that who I'm accountable to.
Yeah.
My higher power, my sponsor,
Yeah.
my support group.
Number three is what I've learned. It's the force of change. What Tesla said: if you can figure out 3, 6, or 9, you can figure out the universe. That's what he said. But I do know what 3 is. 3 is that force of change. 3 has to come in your life to change you.
When you do the numerology stuff, I'm a 3 too.
Yeah.
I am. If you do, no matter how you calculate those different ways of coming up with what numbers is, I'm a 3.
Well, if you see if you're looking at water and you see the sparkly, beautiful, like sparkles coming off the water, that's the water, that's the sun, and that's the wind. Takes 3 elements, takes 3 things to get that. Just three's the most important number to me for anybody to change. It just is.
Yeah, I'm a 3 type of dude.
Yeah, me too, man. Well, I'm glad I didn't know that. See, now I know about you. I believe in the 3s too, buddy. I really do.
This gets because a lot of people don't listen. There's quite a few people. There's some people who come in here that listen to the podcast, and some people that don't. And I really do appreciate the listeners and the feedback I get from people who do listen to this, because I'd have never thought that this was going to turn out to be something this morning. I imagine we crossed over 14,000 downloads while we're here. But there's a collateral benefit of this thing that I hadn't realized too, is that when I sit here and we have this chat, I get to know you better.
Gotcha. Sure.
And whether if I knew you when you got here, because there's people that walk into this studio that I have never met before, and there's people I've known pretty well.
Right.
And no matter where end of the spectrum they're at, I know them better when they leave.
Absolutely. That's connection. That's the most. It's the gift of all gifts. Is human connection, man. For me.
Yeah. Well, you're shining, man, and you always have to some extent. That's the other thing about it. You do see people who are like a little. Not where they end up, we grow and you see people grow and do that. But there's also a certain thing in and I won't say that I have this ability to do that, but to some extent I think I do with my people I work with, because I'm a pretty good picker of the people I work with. And if I don't think you're going to make it, I usually don't sponsor you.
I gotcha.
And so you see these people like you, and you see other people like when I first met you, you look like a dude who was getting it or was going to get it to me.
Gotcha.
I don't know why. I don't have any idea how that happens.
Neither do I.
But you always have had, and even when I first met you, your shares had a depth to them that that caught attention. You know, you hear some people just ramble, right? You always had something to say that caught my attention and made me listen.
Thank you. Appreciate
And
that.
you still do.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I always
Because you never know. You just talk and
Yeah.
you just never know what's going to happen. Like
but
you
you
said,
have a gift with it, you know. I mean, you do.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I really appreciate this, buddy. I do. From the bottom of my heart, by the way.
You come in and saved me to some extent, and it's another one of my higher power things. You know, a few weeks ago when this COVID thing was going on, and I had a number of people who didn't want to come in the studio and do face-to-face ones.
I got you.
And I really didn't. I'll do the Zoom ones, but I was really hoping. I was like, I don't think there's a problem with the two of us getting together like this.
Well, we're at least 8 feet apart.
Yeah,
For sure. It's not we're like hugging all over each other.
And you know, for the most part, this is not what the whole thing is about.
No,
you know, it's not mean. I mean, because people are in rooms together all the time, living together, and they're not a problem.
No.
So I'm glad you. I'll finish. I'll wrap up with this. Is
Okay.
that I was pretty down a couple of weeks ago about this thing, and I thought about maybe just giving it a break and setting it down. And there was a piece of me that said, you set that down, it probably won't get back up. And you and Nate both popped up out of nowhere,
Cool.
and willing to come do the podcast.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. It's an honor,
So
man.
it shined that light back on it.
Yeah.
That hadn't happened in a while.
That's not my tapping, by the way. That's not my fingers.
Air compressor that I blowed off everything, and I had really good time not having that happen for a while. It used to happen like almost all
Did
the
it really?
time. Yeah, and it usually happened earlier in the podcast. So thank you for doing that because you helped me
My pleasure, man.
raise this thing back up again. We'll close this thing out here in just a second. Is there any final thoughts you want to say here before we do so?
Like I said earlier about your story, guys. Anybody that's thinking about getting clean and sober, anybody that's at their first part of being clean and sober, and somebody who's been 2 or 3 years and hasn't grown, the story is still being written.
Yeah.
And it could be any story. And once you learn that, man, then the secret, all these secrets and these little gifts and this knowledge starts hitting, and you start becoming who you were meant to be.
Right. Yeah. That is really the aim. Mm-hmm. That's the be a better version of myself day by day, growing closer and closer to who I was made to be.
Yeah. I couldn't say it better, bud.
Yeah, man. So I close these things saying the same words every time. Thanks, Greg, for being here, man. I love you.
Love you too, buddy.
I always, again, just appreciate you and what you do, and I'm honored and privileged and just so happy that you're a part of my life, man.
Appreciate that, man. Right back at you, brother. I mean that, man. I feel the same way about you too, buddy. It's like I say, that spiritual underground meeting retreat we had when I was like 3 months at the most sober. That was the first profound change I ever had in my life.
Yeah, thank you for that blessing, because that's cool. That's the kind of stuff that makes me keep on doing this stuff. You know, if that kind of stuff wasn't happening, I'd quit, wouldn't I?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You know, if
absolutely.
you weren't getting that kind of positive feedback loop.
Right. Yeah. Your service is, like I say, your service is it's you're walking the walk.
Well, thank you.
You don't
man.
just talk the talk.
I found that I had very little choice in that, because walking halfway, the walk was causing me to relapse all the time. So I thought I would do something different.
Yeah.
Sorta. I mean, I didn't really, but I was open to doing something different. This stuff got handed to me. So, folks out there, if you can't hear that energy in us, that's really what I want to deliver here through this podcast, is that energy of recovery that's attractive and makes you say, "Hey, man, that whatever I'm hearing over there, I want some of that," because that's not necessarily what it looks like everywhere. Some recovery can look a little humdrum, and some people are not quite getting what others are getting out of their recovery, and I do believe there's something to what you put in is what you get out. Also, I think that's another one of this spiritual axioms. But so same old thing I say every week, right? Hey, if you're not having a blast in your own recovery, it's your own damn fault.
Love it.
And thank you all out there for listening. Thank you all for allowing Greg and I to participate in our recovery today in this manner. Peace out.
Always tried to be just who they wanted. always tried to do everything they said, only did the things they would approve of. Lock away all your dreams inside your head. Year after year you try to be a good girl. They never failed to point out when you were bad. Stuck to the program like a robot. Became a trophy for mom and dad. But inside you want more. Everything you've been waiting for. Looking for that open door. So every day when you're praying, and your heart just keeps saying, let go and fly. Let go and fly. Spread your wings to the sky. Let go and fly. Ever since you was a little boy, they told you, suck it up and be a man. It's time to